Sidelines with Rob Browne. Talk sporty to me.
All right, Rob Browne, we are back up here with you in beautiful Park in Arkansas, man. We've been Auburn, Atlanta, everywhere, but we are back in the land of opportunity, and it is absolutely gorgeous up here right now. Going out this morning, and I know Dudley's up in the northwest corner where they get snow, and they get snowed in, and he has to shovel a lot of snow during the winter up there in Springdale. I mean, it does get really cold, but when the wind whips across the prairie here in beautiful Park in Arkansas, it gets really cold, but it just feels really nice. I think it's going to be upper 80s again today. Big deal. Deal with it. It's the South. College football is on our minds. We got a lot to cover today. Dudley Dawson, hogville.net, joins us in the first segment. And Dudley, we're going to, I'm going to go ahead and bring you on in here now. I always see Brian Keeter, one of my pledge brothers from Heber Springs, Arkansas, at every Auburn game down there. His nephew, Tripp, is a young man over in Heber Springs, started about a year ago doing high school football games over at Mills, the high school around Little Rock. And he's doing play-by-play now. And Brian and I had a great talk. And I said, man, I'll get him on there and introduce him to Dudley, because Dudley is the gatekeeper for journalism in the land of opportunity, Arkansas. And I think you would be someone he should talk to and mentor, because I said he does Fearless Friday. He's going to hit all 200 high schools. And I've known Keeter 41 years. Great guy. And he said, listen to this tape. And I listened to it. He has the enthusiasm like we do. And I love it. But the bottom line is, you're a pro. You do this. You write every day. So he's going to join us about 15 after. Also be joined by Scott Rabalais. I love it. Audrey goes, let me put in Rebelsis. No, it's Scott Rabalais, Rabalais. I don't know if you know Scott, but hell of a writer, good guy from the Advocate down in Baton Rouge. Been covering LSU a long time. Franz Beard, Mark Hamm join us in hour number 2, along with Jordan Davis Hill. I saw Jordan Hill, who covers Georgia for us, 24/7 Sports. I saw him outside the locker room after the game Saturday. First class guy, man. I think he was heading up to Lake Martin with some friends. Who wouldn't want to do that? But look, we're here 6 days a week, 25 times a month, over 300 shows a year. You know what? Repetition is the mother of all skill. All great writers, all great people, they practice their craft every day. And you want to get the best guests. You want to get the best roster, the best people on your show. Dudley Dawson's one of them, hogville.net. Dudley, look, watch that damn game. I got nothing against A&M, just know a ton of Arkansas people. I hate it. I hate to see them lose. And it's when KJ was hit and they went up about 15 yards for the touchdown. I'm like, you hate to see that. And then I hate to see, you can't get emotionally attached to these teams, but Sam Pittman, I just really, really like him. And he's not having a lot of fun right now. It doesn't matter how much money he makes. He still has a lot of pride in a damn proud state. So take it from here.
Well, the natives are restless. There's no doubt about that, and they should be. There's plenty of valid criticisms, I think, for both coaching parts of it and the playing part of it. It is not where it should be at this point in 4 years. The offensive line, which has been totally reshuffled this week, has been a part of that. But there's so much culpability to go around that you can't just put it on the offensive line. It's just there's blame just about to go everywhere. As much as I like KJ, he hasn't been consistent, but it's hard to be consistent when you're running for your life every time. The tight ends have other than Nathan Haas, have not been, where they're able to even be a factor in the game. And then, I think the running backs, as Coach Pittman has said, they've got to make more people miss. They've got to do a better job blocking for KJ. I did find it interesting. I was reading Cam Ball, a defensive lineman from Arkansas. He's had a pretty decent season. The defense has had a pretty decent season overall, I think. But he talked about how Rocket Sanders has been in the healing chamber. Now, I don't know if that's an actual thing or if that's just a metaphorical thing that he's saying.
Can I tell you something? I don't mean to interrupt you. It's called a hyperbaric air chamber. They put it in there, and it does miraculous things to heal people. So my apologies.
I mean, I knew there was an actual thing. I just didn't know if he metaphorically was saying this as well. It's been a few.
I like that word, metaphorically. You and I see, we came up in the word wealth era. I'm impressed. Keep going.
Well, and I expect them to play better this weekend. They always play great when it goes down to Ole Miss, and Ole Miss does not have the defense that Texas A&M has, but 174 yards total offense last week. I mean, total offense. In 6 of those plays, listen to this, 174 yards total offense. 6 of those plays got them 150 yards. So that means on the other 54-plus plays, they gained 24 yards. That's pathetic. There's another word.
Yeah. Less than stellar. I mean, Dudley, this Arkansas team, if you look at the roster, the last few recruiting classes, they're top 15, top 20 every year. Is it player development, bad luck, or all of the above?
I'm going to go with all of the above. You cannot say that the player development has been good enough, and I'm going to point back to the offensive line because that's the one that we're seeing more. You can't get on 4th and 1. You can't, not protecting the quarterback. I mean, there's a variety of things. I'm not putting it all on them, but you certainly got to put some of it on them. Never in my wildest dreams did I think that there would be an offensive line that would get criticized so much and validly criticized, with their play. But it's just been weird. I mean, the amazing thing to me, they concentrated so much this past week, I guess, on not getting penalties that they didn't get any penalties, no penalties at all, that they forgot to concentrate on moving the ball forward. So now maybe they'll hopefully do a mixture of those. But how wild is that? 14 penalties, 11 penalties to 0 penalties, 500 yards to 200, 300 yards to 174 yards. I mean, I couldn't make this up if I tried to write out a story at the start of the season anybody would believe. I never thought this team was going to be an 8-4, 10-2, and I thought more 6-6, 7-5. But I just never thought here we'd be sitting in the fifth game of the year, or after the 5th game of the year, going, okay, you move over there, you move over here. Hey, you come in here and try this.
Yeah. Well, here it is, Scott in Memphis, where you talk about the possible reshuffling of the Hogs offensive line. And we were driving back from Atlanta, got back last night, I don't know, 7:38, whatever. But all kind of stuff comes during the day when you're driving. And just to be fair to Mildred, my wife, I try not to subject her to 6.5, 7 hours straight of football talk. And, just for the sanity part of it. But I would read, we stopped at a Buc-ee's or Love's Travel Plaza. But you talked about it, reshuffling. What are your thoughts on that? Is it too late?
I guess we're about to find out. Ole Miss does not have as volatile a defense as Texas A&M. Texas A&M, as strange as it sounds, may have the best defensive line in the conference, and certainly played that way last week. It's going to be an interesting ballgame they have this week. I would say that if you sit around and don't do nothing, you're going to get criticized. If you do something, which they're doing, you're going to get criticized. It appears to me that they're going to try to do their best. And Coach Pittman said this the other day. When he said it, I was like, he said, well, maybe we need to have different guys next to each other, maybe some old guys next to young guys. And I thought, well, they're not too far apart there. I mean, it's not like they're living down the street. They're in a position next. But they're obviously Patrick Kudas, who we talk about a lot on here, is just the new center. Bo Limmer is the new left guard. Brady Latham is the new left tackle. Those are places that each of them have worked and played before, but have not this year on a regular basis. And it can hurt. It's got to get better. It can hurt. So, I'm willing to sit and watch and critique after the fact. But I think the most interesting thing I've heard all week, and I have to believe, I don't believe it was just happened, that it was just, organic and it just happened. But Coach Pittman was seen Monday getting up into the offensive line, using some choice words, and basically telling his players that the University of Arkansas football is supposed to be based on the offensive line, and they weren't getting it. They weren't living up to that reputation. So of course, he's going to get criticism for his words, criticism for not doing that quicker, criticism for keeping Cody Kennedy, the offensive line guy, in place. You can't, when you're losing, you can't win, basically.
Yeah. And it becomes, when you are under a lot of stress or you've had a traumatic event in your life, you start forgetting things. When you're 19 years old and you got everybody pounding on you, most of it not really nice, it can mess with you. And that's when you close ranks and shut all that stuff off. I know that when I wake up in the morning, you can't be instantly stimulated by all the stuff coming at you. You got to have some quiet time. But I like hearing that. That's encouraging that Sam Pittman would do that. Would get in there in the huddle. It's another one, Tommy in Little Rock, because we're on the interwebs. We've got listeners everywhere based in Memphis and Parkin. Why does Arkansas struggle in the middle of the schedule? You've been following the Hogs a long time, and here they are. It's only 5 games in. Got a lot of football to play.
The middle of this schedule, in particular, is a monster, and it has been a lot. But every team in the SEC favors it. I think that you have to look and point to not having the depth over the course of the years that we've talked about before. I'm about to take back some statements I've made. One of them was I thought they had 60 people that could play and contribute and be significant. I no longer believe that. Now that I've had the chance to see them, and you did throw out a caveat there that we had not seen these players in action other than going against each other. So, we'll see how it plays itself out with the 38 new guys. But I would say that, it has to do, again, I can sit here and be nice and make everybody feel good or try to, but that's not how I usually operate. And I think that it's a variety of things. It's coaching. It's depth. Yeah. It's not developing the players well enough. That has been consistent throughout this tenure, Coach Pittman's tenure. Now, one thing I will say is that he's always been able to bring them back at the end and get to a bowl game and do all that. Can he do that this year? This would appear to be his biggest challenge in doing that, because they're sitting here ready to go 2-5 if things don't get cleaned up and do anything better. And it's going to be an interesting winter around here if this continues to go. And am I saying Coach Pittman's going to get fired? Absolutely not. Am I saying that's a possibility? Absolutely. I mean, that's how these things work. If you don't get it done in the 4th year, there'll be people who will call for that. I do think that if I was betting, and I'm not a betting man, but if I was betting that there will be some changes, in coaching staff, and he would get another year. It's just my opinion. Whether I think that's, valid or whatever, I do think that it's going to be interesting. Can you keep changing coaches and move your program forward? Do you need to wait another year? That is something that I'll be studying the rest of the year and internalize and tell myself whether it is. I very rarely, over the course of 40 years, have said, this guy needs to go.
Yeah.
I didn't say that about the last guy because he needed to go. He was 18 in conference play. You can bang your head against the wall and all that, but I think, Chad Morris, it was time. And I don't know whether it's time for Sam Pittman or not yet. I think he's a great guy. Everybody says that, but it's just like in your business, in my business, it's what you do, not what you might do, what you're going to do. What are you doing? Your record is what your record says you are.
Yeah. And, here it is. Chris in Marion, Arkansas, how will the Hogs end up? I mean, last year, winning that bowl game, and you could tell at SEC Media Day, Sam Pittman took a lot of pride in the fact that 9 guys decided they weren't going to play. They quit on the team. I don't use the term opt out. They quit. I've been playing sports and just I work. I'm on teams and everything. I'm on a team at work at the bank. You know what? Everybody's got you. You better find it. You better find it. So what do you think they'll end up with this year based on the way things are in this talk about reshuffling the offensive line? Because one thing I do know about Patrick Kudus is he's one of those Swiss Army knives. He can play any position out there, and he's good enough to have played defensive line some in high school as well.
Here's my thing. The thing I'm willing to say, I don't know how it's going to end up specifically, but I'm not planning on going anywhere in December. I don't think right now that you can predict with any assurance that they're going to go to a bowl. I mean, I think I'll be around here covering basketball and doing other stuff in December unless something massively changes. And, if you're a Razorback fan, I'm sure you hope that's that's what the case is. But again, I use the same, National Lampoon's Animal House thing. I'm not going to be Niedermeyer standing up here in the middle of the parade saying everything is just fine, because it's not.
Yeah. Well, I look at Arkansas, and here's this from Shoney down in Valdosta. A&M makes a mediocre offensive line question themselves. Well, A&M is one of the very few teams in Division I. I don't use the term FBS. Why they came up with that is silly. But 2 games in a row, 15 tackles for losses, sacks and TFLs. They've got an elite defensive line. That's going to be fun to watch them play against Alabama Saturday, because the last 2 games have literally gone down to the wire. But now here's another one. Barry in Nashville. Hogs can turn this around. That's what they've done. In 21, they went 9-4. They won the close games. 22, they lost the close games. But so far, KJ Jefferson is healthy. Is he making good decisions in terms of not running too much and keeping himself available for every game, just as you see it?
Has he had a great year? No. Has he had a good year? Yes. Is he, when you're the quarterback at any SEC school, are you open for criticism if you don't get the ball there? I'm not making excuses for him. Obviously he's been running for his life a lot of times, and when he does that, sometimes he makes plays. As strange as it is. But I don't think he's fully healthy, as you wouldn't be if you're getting people up in your grill and slammed to the ground, all the time. I mean, let's be real honest about one thing, and I think I said Nathan earlier. Luke Haas was a nice little security blanket for him. Their chemistry was beginning to develop. I don't think there's any player on Arkansas's team that can get open. It's not to say that Luke Haas is the fastest guy around. He's just got a great football IQ. He makes the right plays. When they went down, when he got hurt, on that first drive, I knew that it was going to be tough for them the rest of the day to be able to be as successful offensively as they want to. And it can't come down to one player. But that's a player that's going to be really good down the line. And now you no longer have your security blanket. KJ, as his head coach said on Monday, has to be more consistent. He also has to be, available to stand up and make plays. I mean, I swear it is like a Friday night back in the day when your kids were coming at you wanting money, to go to the game and all these kind of places. They just keep on coming, and that must be what it's like back there. But also, it's, as I said, plenty of culpability to go around. Nobody on this team I can see on the offensive side of the ball can be excited about how they played this year, feel good about how they played this year.
Yeah.
Other than Mr. Haas.
Isaac Satea, what about him? And you got some transfers. 42 new players on that roster. That's a big deal. Who has really stood out among the newcomers? Because I'm going somewhere with this. I'm going to follow up after your reply.
By the time that they got to September, it had gone down from 42 to 38, and that's how many they played us about. Satenga is I had a chance, obviously, to watch him play here in Fayetteville as he grew up. He certainly is fantastic with the ball in his hands. There are a lot of people calling for more of him. Certainly, they've ran plays in the past where they've been able to get a smallish, speedy wide receiver, not only in the passing game, but in the running game. There's a lot of calls for that. There's talk, from Coach Pittman about maybe how he doesn't catch the ball in practice as much as he should, how he didn't run as good of routes and all that. But people are like, well, you're losing bad here. You need to do something. And they see the punt return, the kick returns, and want him to be used more in the offense. It's hard to say that he shouldn't be at this point right now when you look at the overall things. But those are the tough decisions that coaches have to make. And if they don't put what Arkansas fans, at least some Arkansas fans, believe to be the best players on the field, you wonder what the heck is the deal, especially in the transfer portal era.
Well, looking at what is happening, and I talked and I did some comparative analysis with different rosters. You're seeing a lot of group of 5 guys, go up to Power 5, and they're struggling for the most part. The Power 5 guys are going down to group of 5 schools, and they're having success. That's evaluation on a lot of people's parts, good, bad, and everything in between. But it's to me, October 15th, we're going to have a celebration on this show because it'll be a Sunday. So we'll do it on Monday, the 16th, 5-year anniversary of the transfer portal. Is it working like it's supposed to, in your opinion, or do they need to keep shortening those windows? Because Hugh Freeze was saying, even coaches, you've got to have some time away.
Yeah, it's tough. Now, is it working like it's supposed to? I'm not sure that they did enough research to know what all was going to happen, that it was going to be able to turn this way. Anytime you throw something out there, and let's all remember that was brought on by something going on in our world, not just a couple of ideas that people had. I do think that I saw a story yesterday. I hadn't had a chance to read too much about it, about the NIL and how there's going to be some specifics now. When reading the story over, I thought, yeah, right. Sure, that's going to work. Sounds good, and that's that's the thing you have to do is throw it out there. But it's a runaway freight train. But they did it to themselves, whether it's positive or negative.
Yeah, they did. Hey, Trip Cater has joined us right now. Trip Cater over in Heber Springs, Arkansas. I love to bring on young True Grit journalists. And let me just tell you, Dudley, if you knew his uncle, like I do, is as thorough a man as you will ever meet in your life, a perfectionist. And he starts talking about his nephew, and I start listening to some play-by-play. 1 year is all he's been doing it. But I said, you've got to meet Dudley Dawson. I said, this guy gets it. I said, he ain't going to play around. If you ask him a question, he's going to be honest with you. But he's someone that I would recommend you ask if you could be an apprentice, a mentor, or whatever. But Trip, Dudley Dawson, Hogville.net's with us on the top of the screen. How about that for a backyard, huh? Is that that's a little Red River?
I'm jealous of Trip. I'm jealous of Trip. Trip gets to watch Achilles Ringo, Little Rock Mills' quarterback, every Friday night. That guy is one heck of a player that just makes his team better. I know they're coming off a loss this past weekend, but great team, great coach, and I'm sure it's fun watching them play every Friday.
Oh, it absolutely is. And not just Achilles Ringo, but like all 22 guys on the field who play both offense and defense for Mills are absolutely special. Some guys play both sides of the ball as well. Ringo's main receiver, Akil Madison, is the leading receiver in the state right now, at least in 5A. And of course, you can't talk Mills without talking Razorback commit Charleston Collins. I mean, that guy's an absolute monster on the field. I love watching him play. I gave him a little bit of a hard time last Thursday during warmups because we were chatting on the field, and he was doing wide receiver drills, but he's a defensive lineman, and not to mention he was also wearing his LSU gloves. So I gave him a bit of a hard time for that, him being a University of Arkansas commit. Yeah, I mean, I could go on and on talking about how many special guys on the field are playing for Mills this year, and they've been a lot of fun to watch and a lot of fun to call. I know, Rob, you saw probably currently my most famous call, the game-winning touchdown with 12 seconds on the clock against Whitehall, where I've been compared to Rod Bramlett, the late voice of Auburn, which was kind of a high praise to me because I loved listening to him growing up, and I even got to attend a couple of Tiger Talks that he hosted a few years ago. And I mean, he had an amazing voice, and I also grew up listening to guys like Chuck Barrett, the voice of the Hogs.
Mm-hmm.
Those two have kind of been one of my main inspirations. And I mean, I honestly, probably my biggest inspiration though is probably a guy that doesn't get enough credit as he does. My guy, Billy Morgan, who is both the voice of Heber Springs and Harding University. I mean, if it wasn't for him, I probably wouldn't be sitting with you two here right now. I mean, that guy is it was a big inspiration. He taught me a lot of things about broadcasting, especially on the radio side. So, I'm absolutely blessed to be here, and thank you so much for having me on this morning. It's fantastic. Dream come true, man.
Wait, look, we love doing it. And Dudley, it'd be cool if you go cover a game at Mills on your Fearless Friday, get up there, broadcast booth with Trip Keeter. And that's what I love about this is that Dudley, high school football, it's everything. There's nothing like driving down on a Friday night when I'm going through Mississippi and Alabama on the way to Auburn or wherever, listening to 25 or 30 different high school games. They never lack for enthusiasm, Dudley.
Yeah, absolutely. And a shout out to Rex Nelson and his scoreboard show. Many nights I'm gone to watch the high school game and listen to them coming back. The enthusiasm that Rex has for high school football, that show really is contagious as well. He's another guy that really has transformed himself not only into a news guy who has a respected opinion, but also a sports guy who has his own top 10 now. I like that.
Yeah. Trip, when you go out there and Dudley, it's funny, Rod Bramlett grew up in Valley, Lynette, Alabama, right on the Alabama-Georgia line. And he grew up idolizing a gravelly voiced announcer from 1966 to 2008. 84 seconds left. Dogs in a jam. Lauren, what do you got? Well, there, Georgia having a hard time stopping Bo Jackson, but one more stop. That's right. 82 seconds left. One more stop, dogs. That was his idol. I think that is so cool, Trip, how you've looked at some of these better announcers. And Dudley, what you're doing in high school football, these announcers, talk about Trip, I want you to tell us your favorite memories. You've been doing it for a year, but long-term, what are your goals?
Long-term, honestly, dang, you're throwing the hard questions early at me, Rob.
This is hardball with Dudley Dawson and Rob Browne.
Well, long-term, I think I already achieved one of my long-term goals as being the voice of a network, and I've been named the voice of the Mills Sports Network by Natural State Sports. Long-term though, I don't know. That's a tough one. If I could stay doing this job for as long as I can, that'd probably be good enough for me. Cause man, I love football. I love any and all sports. So, I mean, if I could just keep pursuing this job, whether for being Natural State Sports or whatever network that brings me on, that's the long-term goal.
There's nothing like getting experience when you're young. I had the opportunity growing up in Newport when their sports editor at the Newport Daily Independent took another job. I am about to be a senior in high school. I think this is May, and the editor of the Newport Daily Independent came to me and said, "Would you like to be sports editor for the summer?" So I was a sports editor of a newspaper before I turned 18, and that gave me a great jumping off point. There's no task too small, no task too big when you're young to take and try to get experience and learn from it. It sounds like you're doing that and really running with it.
Trip, and I like what Dudley said. And Dudley, I hope you can hang on with us because Scott Rabalais of the Advocate down in Baton Rouge is going to be on with us after this commercial break. And Trip, you're welcome to. We're going to be talking some LSU coming up in their matchup with Missouri this weekend. But love to have you hang on with us. I love what Dudley said, and I agree. When you get to work every day, what can I do to help? And that's the number one thing. And get on the back wheel of the best and the fastest people out there. And I think, Dudley, what you're doing for high school football in Arkansas is great because you're celebrating the last bastion of amateurism. Although one of the states yesterday announced NIL in high school. It's Georgia or Alabama, but it's kind of a crazy. But Trip, you want to hang on with us?
Yes, sir. I'd love to.
Okay. We're going to do it. We're going to do it here. We're going to take a quick commercial break. We'll be right back. Dudley, Dawson, Hogville.net. We're going to be talking some LSU and Missouri right after this.
Red River Ford and Toyota, located in Wynne, Arkansas. If you're in the market for a new or used car, truck, or SUV, call, go online, or drop by and see them. Located 45 minutes from Memphis, go off the 4-city exit on I-40 and go north about 15 minutes on Highway 1. Easy to work with and still believe in customer service. If you live out of town, they will deliver your vehicle to you. RedRiverFordToyota.com. Just see what they can do.
Strengthen your seed zone this spring with quality tillage equipment from House Industries. Located in Cherry Valley, Arkansas, House Industries specializes in manufacturing superior equipment that will minimize your downtime and keep you working in the field. To ensure the highest quality control, all design, fabrication, and testing takes place in a 99,000 square foot manufacturing facility located right here in the heart of the Delta. Locate your nearest House equipment dealer online at houseindustriesinc.com.
House Industries, breaking ground.
Sidelines with Rob Browne. Talk sporty to me.
All right, we're going to bring in Scott Rabalais. Scott, welcome. We've got a lot going on here this morning. And college football, it never has a dull moment. And I'm looking here at some of the questions we've had, but you've been covering college football and LSU down in Baton Rouge for about 34, 35 years. And like that, Smith and Memphis, thank you, Scott, for always being a pro. Go Tigers. So you've forgotten more than I know. This is Dudley, Dawson, Hogville.net, and Trip Keeter, an aspiring young sportscaster, 22 years old over in Heber Springs, Arkansas. We've been talking high school and college football, but let's talk about where LSU is and where you think they're going to end up.
That's a big question. It's the fact that they've lost 2 games so far is not surprising. This is a challenging part of the schedule. They lost to Florida State to open, and they went on the road and lost to Ole Miss. Is not necessarily surprising, but it's kind of the way they've done it. The defenses looked so bad, and of course they wasted a great offensive effort against Ole Miss Saturday. LSU scores 49 points in an SEC game. You think they're going to win, and I think it's the first time they ever scored that many points and lost in regulation. The only other loss was like that 74-72 loss to Texas A&M in 2018, which would just have an overtime. So, it's a team that's kind of very one-sided. They have a great offense, and they have what has so far been a really porous defense. And if they can just get that to be average, they can win any game left on the schedule. But it's they can also lose a lot of games left on their schedule as well, including this one Saturday at Missouri. So it's a very interesting kind of LSU tries to find its depth, and it's hard to peg because they're still in contention. You only have one SEC loss, so they're still in contention. But at the same time, you're like, they can't win the division again if they keep playing like this. So it's hard to figure. But when you got an offense that can help you win any game and a defense that can help you lose a lot of them as well.
Yeah, Dudley.
Hey, first of all, Scott, good to see you. You've been a follower for a long time. I love the fact that you keep your hand in high school sports, just like I do as well. I always love reading that stuff. And certainly, I agree. The LSU offense is unreal. I mean, I love watching them play. The defense is fun to watch as well, but not because it's playing the way that Brian Kelly wants them to. Clearly, the back end, I guess could be improved, but that's certainly, the team I cover up here has a lot that they can improve on as well.
There's a lot of fingers being pointed at the secondary, and it hasn't been. The pass defense hasn't been good. LSU's, way down the list in terms of third down conversions. It seems like teams get into a third and long, as we saw with Arkansas the week before. I mean, LSU let them go up and down the field too, and just got the last score and won the game. But it's also the linebackers have been okay, and the front, the defensive line, this is supposed to be real strength to the defense compared to the secondary, has not gotten a lot of push, has not generated a lot of pass rush. They didn't get Jackson Dart on the ground one time Saturday. Got some pressures, but they didn't sack him. So it's and they started the season with Harold Perkins, who was on everybody's preseason All-American list, playing an inside linebacker position compared to the edge linebacker position that he was supposed to be in, and or was in last year, and he looked like a robot, as one former LSU player said. They moved him back out there, but he still hasn't been as effective as they would like him to be. So it's just it's a question of execution and maybe player evaluation and maybe some scheme. It's not, like I always say, it's not just hitting the iceberg that sank the Titanic. It was going too fast and ignoring the warnings, and that's the design of the ship and that sort of thing. So it's a lot of things that have contributed to LSU's defense being in the pickle it is. And if I may say one last thing, everyone likes to score points, but LSU's identity as a program has been through its defense over the years. I mean, going back to the Chinese Bandits in 1958, who were the third stringers who played defense, and Tommy Casanova and the Honey Badger and Glenn Dorsey and Patrick Peterson and all these players. This is where when LSU didn't play, Charlie McClendon, who's LSU's longtime coach, was a defensive coach, and he made sure they were good on defense. And when LSU's not good on defense, people are not happy. Everyone likes to score points, but they've lost some of the identity of the program at the moment, and they need to try to get it back. And it won't be an easy fix over the course of this season, that's for sure.
Rip. I'll keep it short and sweet. I mean, LSU, they've always been a fun team to watch. It's tough to say as a diehard Razorback fan like myself, but I love watching LSU. Those beautiful classic uniforms that they wear. It's they're a very historic team. And yeah, like y'all said, their defense is probably the driving force of their team, and that really shows in the games that they've played so far, especially when they hosted Arkansas in Death Valley. Yeah, I mean, LSU's always been a hard-nosed team, and you can't really if they fall off the wayside, if they have a little bit of hard times, they always find a way to bounce back, and that's something that you always have to respect about LSU, because they never stop fighting down there in Baton Rouge.
Well, it's Brian Kelly drew a parallel to last season, and it's valid. Last year, about this time of the year, maybe one game further along, they lost to Florida State, and then they won like 4 in a row, and then they got just hammered by Tennessee here in Baton Rouge, and everybody's like, "Oh, the sky's falling" and everything. And then they got it back together, and they won until they lost to Texas A&M, which was probably the clunker of the season, given what kind of season A&M had. But they still won the SEC West and beat Alabama and were that team to represent LSU in Atlanta. So it's possible that they could still get their act together and have a division winning win the division again. I mean, like I said, they only have one loss. They might need a little help at this point. Ole Miss is you can see LSU's got to go and win at Alabama, which they did, which they have played very well there recently. So, and Alabama looks a little vulnerable. That's the bad thing, I think, for LSU fans, is that the division looks like it's theirs for the taking again, but it's wide open for a lot of schools. So it's not everything. It's not just in LSU's favor, but they still have a chance as much as anybody, I guess I would say.
Yeah.
And especially with that offense, which is one of the top 10 offenses in the country, and they've been extremely prolific. And Jaden Daniels has played really well. We talked to Jaden yesterday, and he said. All the experience they have. They returned virtually everybody on their offense from last year, and he said just another year, man, in the offense and the system and together. He said that's really what's made them really good, and they've shown it. They've been very efficient and prolific all year long.
This is a year where all 14 appear vulnerable. Maybe the 15 and 16 teams that. Are coming in next year, though. Maybe they would be the two best teams in the league this year, possibly. We'll see. They play each other this week in Oklahoma, Texas. So, going to watch that and see how it plays itself out. But even as good as Georgia is, being able to come back and win these games, I'm sure that Coach Smart would rather play from ahead from start to finish and not have to play the way they have here recently.
Yeah. Scott, let's talk about this. I like this bill in St. Louis. Mizzou is 5-0, shaky. LSU's the best team they've played. There's no question about that. Watching that game, we were down in Auburn for the Georgia game. After that, we watched it with a bunch of friends. 706 yards for Ole Miss. It was crazy. And the LSU offense, I haven't seen one like this in a long time. I don't think Missouri's ever seen one like this. I know they won in 20 after the 19 season, and that was just a disastrous season. I think LSU goes in there in the 11 a.m. time slot and wins something like 38-14. That's just I like to bet on games like a steamer pack of crystals, but there's just too much talent. You're not going to hold them down.
Robert, LSU, I think LSU can win if they hold anybody to 14 points right now.
Well, I think I made a miscalculation.
I would be a little shocked. I mean, they've got LSU's offense is very good. They've got a very good passing catch combo too. Luther Burden, leads the nation in receiving yards. In fact, he and Malik Neighbors from LSU are 1 and 2 in the FBS in receiving yards. So, but they've got their passing defense has not been good either. And it is the best team they've played. LSU's a favorite. LSU's about a touchdown favorite in Las Vegas. LSU was I think a 2.5-point favorite last week in Ole Miss, and then it came down to the last play. They lost, but it came down to the last play. I'm leaning towards picking LSU to win, but maybe not to cover in this game. But I think it could be another shootout again, a la the Arkansas game. I mean, not as many points as last week when LSU don't miss, because Ole Miss fans can't be too happy with their defense either. Giving up 632 total yards to LSU, but. It could be another shootout type game, I think, in Columbia, and LSU's got to be awoke and ready to play at that 11 a.m. game. They were in Starkville against Mississippi State, played very well a couple of weeks ago up there in the win in that game. But typically, the Tigers, they're used to those night games. In Tiger Stadium, they're not too wide awake at 11 a.m. They're just getting up. Yeah. That's just people are just into and Tiger fans are just into their first pregame Bloody Mary at 11 a.m. So we'll see if they're ready to go. But they have to be a little angry. Brian Kelly said after the game he wants his team to be PO'd at how they played and then the fact that they lost Saturday at Ole Miss and come back with a renewed effort in this game. And the LSU plays. I think it's a little tough spot for LSU in that. No offense to Missouri, it's a little hard to take Missouri football seriously if you're LSU. It's not one of those schools that you go, it's Auburn. Next week is Auburn. They're playing Auburn. Okay, Auburn. Or when Arkansas came to town, traditional rival, you play them every year. You don't see Missouri very often. If you're LSU, maybe they'll see them more often in the years to come with the new SEC schedule format whenever that gets decided. But it's an interesting challenge to have to go up there a week after losing at Ole Miss. And again, if they get through it and win, I would look back and say, not surprised that they split these two back-to-back road games because that's tough in the SEC. but they really got to go up there if they have and play with a renewed sense of urgency. If they can realize that this is their last chance to still keep any of their dreams alive for the season and to still have a chance to win the West.
Yeah, Rob, I'm starting to go hard of hearing a little bit now that I'm 60 and all that. You did say 38-34, right?
Yeah. Well, I was going to say that was. I have a theory about this. It's always darkest before dawn in the stock market. In my other career as a financial advisor, and I just see everybody is saying this is the worst LSU defense imaginable. But look at that roster. That's all I'm saying. And you'll be surprised at what might happen Saturday. I think that 11 a.m. game, LSU guys are excited. They get the game over with early. They get to go back to Baton Rouge. They got the whole night to go out or go to the library and study, whatever they do. But that's all I was saying, Dudley.
Hey, I used to go to the library every Saturday night here in Fayetteville when I was in college, and my mom would call my friends and say, "Where's Dudley?" And he's at the library. She didn't know until after I got out of college that the library was a bar on just off Dixon Street. So sure thought I was studying a lot.
Yeah.
There used to be a bar called the Library. I live about a mile from LSU's campus, and in this part of town, there was a bar called the Library too. Yeah. But it was around when I was in school.
I studied a lot there.
Yeah, there's one in Oxford right off the square called the Library. I think Tripp, there's one in every college campus. Scott, just a couple of more minutes. I know you got a big day, and I like that. David in Monroe, Louisiana, because of the interwebs, we're everywhere. Scott and Dudley are the definition of journalism, class acts, both of them. And I think that's good because one of the things that I see at media days or at different games, and I saw a lot of people that are on this show that help us at the Auburn-Georgia game, like Jordan Hill, who will be on in the second hour. Scott, the newspaper business, it's always changing, but you've evolved really, really well. How long have alligators been around? 200 million years? People act like journalism's in trouble when you work as hard as you and Dudley do. But when you write, my mother always taught me, she still does, she's 88, you learn things by writing them and putting them on paper. When I read great writing like from you or from Dudley, it's like lifting weights with my brain. So don't ever stop. I'll just say that. That's a personal opinion because Tony Barnhart will be on next week with us, and him and Furman Bisher and Jesse Outler, all those great writers. That's why we love sports, because you're like the great artist. We all love Monet. We all love, the great artist from throughout history, Michelangelo. And he was 36 years old when he did the frescoes in the Sistine Chapel. People forget that. You're not old. Hopefully you're going to be doing this like Furman Bisher was writing, I think, in his mid-90s. I love that.
Furman Bisher, I remember seeing him at the SEC championship game and stuff in the press box and at the Masters, and they kept a seat for him the year after he died. They kept a seat for him, like his hat and like his credentials. So that was really nice. It was really nice for you to say that. Yeah, it's we're guys like Dudley and myself. We've been around every year. I got to say, I go to the press box and they're like, I don't recognize that face. I don't know that person covering the team anymore. Yeah. But it's still something that you have to have a passion to do this job, and it's an avocation, not just a vocation. And I still get a kick out of actually being at the game, and like it was a great atmosphere, and it's a great atmosphere in Tiger Stadium, usually, and it was a great atmosphere Saturday in Oxford. I enjoyed it very much, and I'm sure Missouri's going to be fired up for LSU too. This is a huge game for them Saturday.
It is.
Hey, my trouble in the press box these days is I'm trying to convince the youngsters here in the press box now that the Eagles and the Rolling Stones are much better than Tiger and Drake. But I listen to all of them, but I'm just saying that there's a new kid in town is a much better song than Slime. Just saying.
Dudley, the only redeeming thing about getting to, and I'm going to be 57 in a couple of weeks. The only redeeming thing about getting to my age is that, I look at these young kids and I say, one day you're going to be like, what are you saying? What are you wearing? What are you listening to? I don't understand. You're going to do it too. And I take solace in that. One day they're going to be in my position and going, what's going on? I don't get what's happening.
I love it. Hey, Tripp, I know you probably got some questions. Scott Rabalais, you see him everywhere. Great writer, but again, he's done the great job of transitioning to electronic media. You'll see him on the Paul Feinbaum show. Or is Scott, one guy, I heard him in the bookstore one time at Auburn. He goes, "Yeah, I look at old Paul Feinbaum on the TV at night." Feinbaum, he went to my high school, Christian Brothers High School in Memphis. Then he transferred to White Station. But people in Memphis, proud of him, love following his career. And man, it is so much fun when he has the guest on like you. But Tripp, go ahead before we let Scott get back to work.
Yeah, I do have a lot of questions, so I'm gonna try to keep one short and sweet for Scott. So I guess I'll do two in one. How did you get into this amazing job of sports journalism, and what has been your favorite memory of this position?
Well, I really originally thought about being a broadcaster. I was working at Wendy's when I was in high school, or maybe my first year at college. And I'm driving home from closing one night, and Larry King had a late night radio show long before he was on CNN. He had a late night radio show, and he had Vin Scully on there. He was interviewing Vin Scully, who, of course, the great announcer for the Dodgers, and of course, for years before that, did CBS. He even did a little golf. If people forget, he had a great call of, you can find it on YouTube, a great call of Gary Player making the winning putt in the 1978 Masters. And it's one of my favorites. And I thought, this is great. This is a great. People, you go to games and they pay you to go. Yeah, this is a great idea. Scully's just telling all these wonderful stories about his career, and he was just talk about a wordsmith. Oh my goodness, Vin Scully. Yeah. And so I got to college and I was like, maybe I don't have a voice. Or you have a voice, Tripp, for broadcasting. I didn't like my voice or my look for broadcasting. So I got over to news editorial, and I started at our paper here in Baton Rouge with the afternoon paper, the State Times. Was our afternoon paper, and then started working for the Advocate. Covered high schools, primarily, then Southern University here in town. That's that's a big beat for us. And then I've been covering LSU since '92. My favorite memory, I guess you mean covering college sports, because I could go on about some other things like covering the Masters, which is my favorite week of the year. Something to cover. But it's hard to beat the for football. Just obviously LSU, covering LSU's national championship runs. It was nothing like the 2019 season. I mean, it was just the ultimate. Brian Kelly could lead LSU to a national championship one day, but there probably won't be a better team than that. And I don't think LSU may not ever top that season. For one moment, though, it's probably Warren Morris's home run in the 1996 College World Series. Yeah. He hit it out. It was just a dramatic moment. They're down a run, 2 outs, man on, and he hits a 2-run homer to the right field corner. And, he batting ninth. He had broken a bone in his hand earlier that season. He would have been batting second or third if he had been healthy, but he was batting ninth. And sometimes fate finds you. That's a lot of times fate finds you in sports. It's one thing I've learned over the years is sometimes you can't help but escape your fate, good or bad. And that day, fate found Warren Morris and led him to have one of the greatest LSU single sports moments that I've seen. Billy Cannon's punt return against Ole Miss in '59 and Warren Morris's home run are probably the two singular moments. And that one still resonates with me. I was 29 years old. And I remember thinking afterwards that, well, I probably just saw the single most amazing moment of my career. It's all downhill from here.
Interestingly enough, mine was when I was 30, and it was when Arkansas played in the national championship game, but it was not them playing in the national championship game. It was walking out from the press room into the arena with them getting ready to play Duke, and me thinking, I've been watching this at home the previous 28 years or whatever, and now I'm getting to cover this. This is so cool. And when it is you've got an advantage on me and some of the others. When they tell me I have a face for radio, I don't think it's a compliment.
I think I have a face for radio, so that's my own thing. But it's been a thrill. Like I said, I still get a kick out of going to the stadiums, and I didn't have a chance to walk through the Grove Saturday at Ole Miss, but I've been there just to see the different campus. I love college campuses, just to see at the different college campuses and everything, all over the SEC. And and I'm looking forward to. I've never been to a football game in Oklahoma. They come here next year for the first time ever. LSU and Oklahoma have only played in bowl games to this point, so they come here. And I thought that was a good thing the SEC did, make sure that everyone in the SEC plays Texas or Oklahoma next year. Yeah, and so that's going to be exciting, obviously, to have them in the conference and see how that what they add to it. Because you're right, Rob. This year they might be the two best teams in the SEC if they were in the league right now.
Yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun watching the Red River shootout this weekend. That's the biggest game in the country, and they like the 11 a.m. timeout game. I call that timeout, having raised 3 kids, and of course we did a lot worse than timeout. Sometimes you get whacked, but the bottom line, this has been an awesome discussion. I love it. And Scott, let people know how they can follow you and keep up with your great work. Because I always say this: if you're a hog fan, if you're an LSU fan, whatever, I like to read about all the other schools. I need to, because our show covers them all. But when you bring on people like this, and Tripp, you've seen it firsthand. I love it. Quote of the day: sometimes fate finds you. And I was a Larry King junkie too on the radio at night. Jim Bohannon. Now here's Larry. I'd listen to it, and I can remember great radio moments. AM 1040 WHO, Des Moines, Iowa, listening Christmas Eve 1980. University of Wyoming head football coach Pat Dye resigned today. He's rumored to be in the leading candidate for the Auburn job after 5 other people turned Auburn down: Bobby Bowden, Vince Dooley, Dick Crum at North Carolina. But Vin Scully, if there's ever a voice like him again, we need to. That's a unicorn. He was that good. But let people know how they can follow you, Scott. Look forward to our next visit. This is great stuff. And thanks for spending time talking to a aspiring young radio guy and journalist. But you heard from 2 of the best, Tripp, and I would take what they say and run with it.
Well, thank you, Rob. I appreciate it. Yeah, we're at theadvocate.com or NOLA.com, which is we have The Advocate and the Times-Picayune, 2 papers that merged a few years ago, but they both have websites. But you can find our stuff either one. NOLA, NOLA is easier to remember, and you can go to the LSU pull down and you get the link there. And then I'm on Twitter or X or whatever we call it these days at Rabalais ADV. So it's Rabalais, my last name, ADV, and all our stuff. So if you read enough stuff, eventually they're going to say, "Hey, we need you to pay for this." But if you read a few stories, we'll be very happy for the clicks and to move on. You'll be fine.
Cost is only an issue in the absence of any added value, and it is well worth it, folks. Trust me, you will be investing in something worth a lot of the money. Scott, have a great day. Look forward to having you on again soon. Everybody else, hang on here, and we'll be right back after this quick commercial break. And Dudley and Tripp, both of y'all, you hear it, the passion that he has. How did I get into it? I was working at Wendy's, and I'm Larry King. That. Larry smoked about a pack every show. Dudley, tell us about your career. He sounded like some interrogating cop, in some Dick Tracy movie or something. But the passion and going, as writing. You're great on this TV, YouTube, whatever we call it. You're great at it because you're genuine. You're real, Dudley. And hey, Tripp, I told you where he's from. Newport, but he actually grew up in the suburbs in Balch, Arkansas. You ever been through Balch, Tripp?
I don't think I've ever heard of it.
Hey, before I get out here, you always tell people where they can find you. I've always wanted to say Thursday I'll be at the Odd So Bar and Grill. In the afternoon, Friday I'll be at the Grove Comedy Club. But also, if you want to read my stuff, you can at hogville.net, which is our website where we cover all sports, obviously, and fearlessfriday.com is the high school site that I participate with. And then Twitter, I'm going to have a lot to say on Twitter the rest of the year, or X or whatever, like you said, that social platform, I'm not going to hit send on much of it, though. I'm going to type a lot of tweets. I'm just not going to hit send on all of it. I'm just going to get it out of my system by typing it, having the wife come on. Do you think I should put this on? No. Okay. Well, okay. but it's how I feel.
Yeah. Well, it's great because hogville.net, every hog fan I talk to, I go, hey, subscribe to hogville.net. Dudley, Dawson, got great people on there. And I'm trying to send everyone I can to follow you. And what we're building on Sidelines is a team of great journalists. And Dudley, you and I can remember when, I know in Memphis, I don't think the commercial appeal to the press scimeter allowed for a long time their writers, to come on the sports radio shows. That was terrible. And now it's what's keeping them out in the forefront. And then you look at the Paul Feinbaum show, if you can get through those callers, like Audrey said yesterday on the way back, she goes, I don't know how you can hear these callers. I think a lot of them are in the nervous hospital and they just get phone privileges and they call out for help. But I love the guests that he has. Scott Rabalais is great.
Mm-hmm.
I talked to my LSU friends from Louisiana. They go, oh, I know a lot of Rabelais. It's like my friend Jeff Heimbach. That ain't a common name. I went over to Munich one time, I was in a train station. I looked in a phone book trying to find a hotel, and I said, I'm going to just see how many Heimbachs there are. There were like 6.5 pages of Heimbachs. You got to see police when they pull you over trying to pronounce that. It's Mr. Heimbach. It's Heimbach. He goes, I don't care what it is, son. Shut up. But anyway, love having you on, Dudley. Trip, I got to get you back on here. Keep doing what you're doing. You got to, the golden voice. You talk about the late Rod Bramlett and his wife. When they died, Paula, in May 25th, I think, of 2019, it was a terrible loss, but an incredible voice. And when Paul Eels was a great voice. Dudley, he died in 2006. Is that when it was?
Yes. Yeah. Great guy.
But Barrett, the Hog Network, my friend Scott Paulo was a quarterback at Little Rock Parkview, and his tight end was Keith Jackson. He said the scariest place they ever played a high school football game was a Friday night, Pine Bluff, Arkansas, Dollarway High School.
Dollarway,
They said the locker room was underneath the bleachers, and they were pounding and making so much noise it was shaking. They thought it was going to cave in on them, but it was also very comforting to have Keith Jackson out there to throw to. So, but I'm going to tell you what, college football, guys, the crowds that we're seeing, it's on fire. I mean, and Trip, if there's anything you can say when you're on the radio is, like Dudley does, Fearless Friday, go to high school football games. You'll fall in love with it, but you start with your kids at a lot younger age. But anyway, it never gets old. But Dudley, hogville.net, thanks so much for your time being with us. We're going to take a quick commercial break and be right back. We got lots more college football to talk about. And Trip, thank you for being on here with us. And Dudley, we'll do this again. And Dudley, I'd like to get y'all hooked up. Can I send the information so he can reach out to you?
Absolutely. It's going to be a great day, by the way. 4 stories, 4 baseball games. That's my day.
Hey, now look, I know your Cardinals aren't in, but we were right next to the Battery a couple of days there in Atlanta. They're opening up the team workouts to the general public. And the question is, are they going to sell concessions? But what a great way to spend afternoon, of course, after work hours, of course. It'll be a fun time. Anyway, we'll be right back, folks, with hour number 2 of the Sidelines Wednesday edition.
Unbelievably, every 2 minutes in our communities, a child is either bought or sold for sex. I am Ari Dickey, board member for the Nashville Anti-Human Trafficking Coalition. Join me and millions of others in our fight against human trafficking and for its victims by helping to educate the most vulnerable among us, our middle and high school students. Go to nhtcoalition.org, become a partner, and help keep our families safe, because none of God's children are for sale.
I'm back here with you. Hour number 2. We're going to bring in Rocky Top Tennessee Tailgate Report. Mark Hamm, Franz Beard, GatorbaitMedia.com is going to join us here in a second. And Mark, we've got, this is one of my fraternity brothers from Auburn, from Heber Springs, Brian Keeter. It's his nephew, Trip Keeter. He said, you got to get him, on the show, get him hooked up with people. and I introduced him today to Dudley, Dawson, Hogville.net. Scott Rabalais from the Baton Rouge State's Item Advocate, who's covered LSU since '92, and it's a lot of fun. He gets to cover high school football. Been doing it about a year. I like your passion. You're a great listener, Trip. I can already see it. This is Rocky Top Tennessee Tailgate Report. Mark Hamm up in Knoxville. I'm sure you're having trouble who he pulls for, but has the largest tailgate on campus in Knoxville, right by the torch guy. If you ever go to Knoxville for a game, and you will, there's this guy holding the torch. And Mark, is it true that you and Tom Rainey and your crew are responsible for keeping the fuel in that torch? Because if it ever goes out, Tennessee football is done. But there's been a great revival since the Florida game.
Yeah, we try to keep the gas going there. A lot of hot air and some of my guys up there, but so we just take the skins from the people we scalp and win from, all the people we beat, and we just feed that to the torch guy. Keeps it rolling.
Well, the thing I've seen with Tennessee, the Florida game, it was a night in that second quarter. Florida put together 4 straight touchdowns. And in the second half, Tennessee really shut them down. Yeah. But Tennessee's win came at a cost, man. Brew McCoy, I watched the Keogh Spikes in the preseason. 5 hardest guys to tackle in the SEC. Brew McCoy, transferred from Southern Cal, was a 5-star recruit, broke his ankle. We're down, Audrey and I were down in Auburn after the Georgia game. Over at the May Veterinary Clinic, Tuscaloosa in Northport since 1964. One of our sponsors we're damn proud to have. And I had the Vol Network sports app on. I keep the Sports Animal 99.1. And there was so much commotion. They just said a player is down, had to take him off on the cart. Were you at that game Saturday? I know, I'm not sure where you were because I know you were traveling. I thought you were maybe at the State Fair in Iowa.
Well, actually, I'm in Dallas today, and they're having the big Texas State Fair here.
That's it.
Big Tex, is always here. But I'm down here for business. But no, I was at the game Saturday. Brew McCoy is a tough dude. I mean, he's a big guy. He came in and has really just been kind of he made that clutch pass last year, to set up the play for us to beat Alabama. And so the dude's really tough, and he goes across the middle, obviously, and it was kind of a freak. Kind of tackle, and those kinds of things unfortunately happen. But he had successful surgery, and hopefully he'll be back for maybe he'll come back next year. I think he has one more year he could come back, but we're hoping that may happen.
Yeah, Trip, you're 22. Have you thought about a research project or a thesis on? Does anyone ever graduate anymore? There's an old saying, you can never go home. With the virus, I mean, there are guys now in their mid and upper 20s playing college football. I mean, I knew guys like that in college. I was almost one of them. It just took that long to get out, and I wasn't even in medical school.
Yeah, I've noticed a recent trend. There are some guys in college football right now who are playing their 8th or 9th or 10th or 15th year of football. I mean, it's insane. Yeah, I mean, if I were to write a thesis or something, I might want to start doing that after hooking up with guys like Dudley. It would definitely be on like how that happens, because I'm 22 going to community college. I'm starting to think, hey, maybe my chance is still wide open to play for the Razorbacks to walk on or something.
Well, I mean, that you feel like that. You're over in Heber Springs. What a tough place to grow up in. The Little Red River, Greer's Ferry. I mean, that is absolutely beautiful. Mark, you're not located too far from Waco. That's a side.
Yeah, Waco's about an hour from here. I mean, it's not far. All
kinds of things go on there.
There's a lot of stuff going on down there. I guess, you got Baylor that's, down in that area. So, I don't know what kind of year they're having, but hey, nothing like going through Waco.
No, there's not. Look, looking at Tennessee, and Franz Beard, I was hoping was going to be joining us, and hope everything's okay. But I'm sitting here looking at what is happening, and college football. And Trip, you heard this narrative a lot, and Mark, we talked about it a lot on the show. the crowds are incredible.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we were at the Auburn-Georgia game Saturday. As Audrey says, Auburn might be on the surface of the sun. It is so hot. I mean, it was 90 degrees. It was just scorching. You're out there. I think there were 150,000 people there, 90,000 in the game, probably 60 tailgating on the outside. And, just the atmosphere is incredible. We need more water, okay? At Mississippi State, they need more cowbell. But, Mark, talk about those crowds up in Knoxville. I just think there's a Billy Graham-type tent revival going on in college football. You know why? Because the elites tried to take it from us 3 years ago.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I think I don't know. I may be a little biased, but the SEC I think is the best conference around. I was here in Dallas and visiting with some family, and one of my nephews goes to Oklahoma State, so we FaceTime him, and he's worked for that athletic department and working with the football team there, and he just said, "Look, Uncle Mark, the SEC is the best division out there, the best conference," and he was just going on and on about how it would be great to be able to go to an SEC school and see some of those games. But so, when you get other people in Oklahoma State, it's had a rich history. I mean, they've done pretty well. But also I think, he realizes as well that, the SEC is the place to be. But as far as crowds, I will tell you, man, our tailgate was probably the biggest we've had in 15 or 20 years. You couldn't walk. There were so many people. I mean, it's almost the point we're going to have to bring somebody in to kind of control who's in there and who's not. But it was insane. It was electric. I mean, all of Circle Park was full. I think my buddy Terry sold 90 tents for the game, and they were all full. And it was just an electric environment. And of course, we go out and get a big win. But anytime we win, it's going to be big. And we got Texas A&M coming in, not this weekend, but next. So I expect us to have another huge tailgate. And again, I judge it by the tailgate, and as many people that are in there drinking and having a good time, it's pretty amazing right now.
Trip?
Man, I've always wanted to experience a college football tailgate, and it sounds like y'all have it a pretty good up there in Knoxville. And I've heard a lot about it. I know. I believe it's called the Volunteer Navy, a bunch of boat gators, as you'd call it, over by the river. That's something I definitely want to experience. I want to pull a Pat McAfee and belly flop in the river down there like he did down in Waco, because that just sounds like a fun time. Tell me how it is tailgating, because I've always wanted to experience it, never really got the chance. What is the definitive way to tailgate before a college football game?
Just get as drunk as you can. No, I'm kidding. I think that's the goal for a lot of people that come to my tailgate. So, look, it's one of those things that we started out small. We started out with a pop-up tent. We would load up our SUVs, go down, and, then we start trying to bring grills. And then I would attach a smoker to the back of my SUV and bring it down and smoke stuff there. And it just keeps getting bigger and bigger, because if you're the one willing to haul everything in, all your friends are willing to show up and partake, because they don't have to, really do anything except show up and eat and drink, right? So you got to have somebody that's willing to mule everything in. We got really lucky in that my buddy Terry Turner, who I need to have on the show sometime, owns something called Tailgate, Tennessee. And there's a flat area there in the University of Tennessee. There's not many flat spots there, but it's a nice venue with nice grass outside the stadium. And he, cut a deal with the university to basically set up tents. And he sells those tents, every week, and you get, a TV, you get ice, you get all these things. You just got to bring your food and your drinks. But I'll tell you, it's if your football team is doing well and people are excited, there's a lot of tailgating that's a lot. I mean, look at the Grove, look at LSU. There's a lot of fun people that really enjoy being there and partaking, obviously. And we have a full open bar, so we get a lot of people that come through there. And for those night games, when they've been drinking for 4 or 5 hours, it gets a little crazy. I think that's the reason why we saw a lot of those golf balls and mustard bottles being thrown at Lane Kiffin a couple of years ago, because I think everyone got liquored up all game, and then they go in and start drinking beer. So it got a little rowdy, but it's fun. It's a blast.
Yeah, it is. And another thing about Knoxville, Gregory Peck in Oak Ridge, Tennessee, the Vol Navy is the 5th largest Navy in the world. Well, if it's that big, it might be numbers wise. I mean, United States Navy, our Navy is the the largest with 307 ships. I think the Vol Navy, if you call it a Navy, may be the largest in the world. That's a bit of trivia. Mark, will you get the research people? How about getting Will on top of that? Get your people with his people, and we'll get them all together and come out with that number.
So one of Will's fraternity brothers who comes to my tailgate, his parents actually bring a boat down to the Vol Navy for every game. So Will would come to the game for a little while, and then for winning, they take off and go to the Vol Navy. And I will tell you what's interesting. I've walked by, but I've never partaken in the Vol Navy. And I need to do that sometime soon. But with my tailgate and everything going on, it's hard to get down there. But I think maybe in the middle of the game, sometime for winning, I'm gonna roll down and see what that's like.
Yeah. Well, getting in now with Tennessee, you got the week off, and then you got Texas A&M. Mm-hmm. The Aggies will be coming up with all those cheers, and nobody knows what's going on. And Tripp, if you can tell us what's going on, Tripp, you're a diehard Razorback fan. Do you know what they're going on with the cheerleaders in the white suits? And they're doing a lot of old cheers that it looks like a Frank Armstrong movie. I'm not sure what's going on out there. It's code. Do you understand, Tripp? You're a young man with a mind that hadn't been crushed by many tailgates.
Well, a few years ago, I knew a guy who was actually part of the cadets down there at A&M, and he tried to explain to me what was going on. And they have the Aggie War hymn or whatever they call it. It's not a fight song; it's their hymn. I don't know what that means, but I've seen many videos of that midnight yell. I mean, it's a cool college tradition, but I mean, you see them going down there. I mean, they're just going like, hey. It's like, what are they doing? It's like,
look, I love them. I mean, our friend Olin Buchanan, TexAgs.com is awesome. I mean, he got a little bit upset with us a couple of weeks ago, and now we have fun on this show. I mean, my God, you remember Brother Theodore, Mark, that used to come out on the Letterman show?
Yeah.
Brother Theodore.
Yeah. I mean, look, we gotta make fun of ourselves. Like, here's what I would say to.
Let me tell you what, Olin Buchanan is one of the nicest, best people around. I know he's mad at it, but nobody meant any harm, and I know you did not. So I know you too well. You're too good a person.
This is for Olin to make him feel better. I've invited him up. He wants to come to my tailgate. We'll have a good time. But the knock on Tennessee is this. There's a lot of guys when it gets cold wear those orange jumpsuits, to the games because it's cold. Yeah. And so you wear that on Saturday to the game, you wear it on Sunday to go deer hunting, and you wear it on Monday when you're picking up trash when you're back in the penitentiary. So that's kind of how we roll here. I mean, that's kind of how we roll here. So.
Hey, you got to have fun. Tripp, did we lose you? Tripp.
That caught me off guard.
And we might have the best curling team in America, because when you have that mullet, that Morgan Wallen mullet, and that porn stash going, dude.
Yes.
That our curling team is amazing.
Yeah, I mean it is a big deal. Let's get into it, Tripp. Arkansas. Look, when you're in the mountains, like Fayetteville, Mark is up. I mean, what is it? Magazine Mountain in Arkansas is I think Magazine Mountain is in the Ozarks. Or is it in the Ouachita Mountains out there? 2,700 feet high. But you get around Van Buren, Tripp, and you get around Jasper, Arkansas, in the mountains over there. It's absolutely gorgeous. Bit of trivia, idiot savant moment. Jasper, Arkansas, home of the International Museum of Junk. I have not been yet, but it's worth a trip. I want to ask you this, Tripp. I've got kids 23 to 34, 4 of them, 2 boys, 2 girls. Mark's got 3. Got 1 at UT, your age, 1 at Georgia, and 1 in high school. I think my kids, they don't have a problem watching a football game from start to finish. Who is behind this narrative, behind the curtain, the wizard of misinformation, trying to say football's in trouble? The young people don't go to the games. They don't want to watch. What I saw down in Auburn over the weekend, and I see it at Oxford, Fayetteville, you name it, is a great revival, again, of college football. Because you know who owns college football? Not 3 city blocks and 6 multinational corporations that try to tell us what to do. It's the fans, isn't it, Tripp?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's the fans that drives college football as a whole. It wouldn't be the same without the fans. My friends and family could tell you, I'm one of those guys who, if the Hogs are getting blown out 100-0, I'm not leaving until that final gun is shot.
There
I mean,
you
I'm
go.
in the stadium the whole time. I don't really understand the narrative that the young people are falling out of football, because as a whole, I've noticed this generation, we just appreciate sports as a whole.
Yeah.
Because we love it. I mean, if you could have, I got to experience the Ole Miss game last year at Razorback Stadium. That place was absolutely packed, young and old. We were going crazy. I had a couple of buddies go with me who both served and currently serve in the National Guard, and they thought I was crazy because we were it was like below freezing, and Hogs got up by like 3 or 4 touchdowns, and I was suddenly shirtless. So I mean, hey, we love college football in this generation, and I think football is, no matter where the direction the sport is going, we're going to be behind our teams. We're going to, like, I know for sure, I don't care if we're suddenly playing in the Sun Belt Conference. I'm going to love my Hogs through and through. And, it's college football, no matter what happens, it's going to be alive and well for a long time.
Yeah. And Mark, hearing him say that, because we have kids the same age, I totally agree with him. This generation gets lambasted so much, but my son Wilson, who's 25, Max, said the same thing. It ain't the kids that are the problem today. It's the parents, but it's the media trying to say y'all don't care. And you nailed it, Mark. I mean, your kids. I mean, my God, how many will Molly bring from Athens for the Georgia game? 50.
Well, so she called me this week and said she's coming up next weekend for the Texas A&M game. She wanted 2 tickets, and she called me yesterday and wants 4. For the Georgia, I've got 8, and she's taken 6, but she didn't know about the other 2, talking about the 8 that I have. So she's asked for those as well. Will and his boys all came by the tailgate, fraternity brothers. They were all headed to the stadium. Look, I saw more, college students in my tailgate last week than I ever have. And, it's hard for them to get tickets. And, even for Molly, I'm headed to Athens, actually, on Friday, because I have something down there with her to go to, but she wants me to go to the game. So I got 2 tickets, and I'm going to the Georgia-Kentucky game. Not sure who I'm pulling for, but maybe I can pull for them both to lose. But anyway, I'll be down there. But look, she can't get tickets either. I mean, it's tough. She only got a few tickets for a few of the games because, they just have to, spread them out between seniors and juniors and sophomores and freshmen. And now that she's a sophomore, I think it's harder. I think it's easier to be a freshman or a senior to get tickets, supposedly. But look, they're always going. They're always having fun. I don't see that changing. And here's the other thing. I mean, let's be for real. I'm not sure Taylor Swift would really date that idiot in Kansas City. But anyway, I think that's a move by the NFL, because if you look at the viewership of all the young people wanting to see Taylor Swift, she's going to every game. So now the viewership for the young people watching the NFL's up, and all they're doing is just trying to get more fans. I mean, come on.
Well, and I definitely agree with that. We were driving back from Atlanta, went up to see Mallory and the baby and Tyler Sunday afternoon. By the way, we went to the new Buc-ee's in Auburn on Interstate 85, 55,000 square feet, 120 gas pumps, 1,000 toilet seats in there, all clean, of course. It's insane. Buc-ee's is taking over the world. When you put 400 jobs, by the way, created, but I just couldn't. They've got everything there at Buc-ee's. I think people are going to start having weddings there. But anyway, Trip, I'm with Mark. I mean, the tailgating, when you go to the different tailgates, you go to 715 West Magnolia, Sigma Newhouse, or, I was with my friend Janet Bell, and I was talking to her, and so many people, the number of kids coming in there. I mean, and the high school kids, they love the games. The portal, the NIL, all that stuff's just a pothole in the road of life, man. Mark and I can tell you this from experience in business and whatever. It's always darkest before dawn. And 2 years ago, when NIL came about, a lot of gloomers and doomers tried to say it's over. Back in February of 20, March of 20, we started our weekend show on the radio. And Mildred, Audrey, my wife, and I were in there, and she goes, I knew you had this when everybody was saying, what are you going to do? There's a pandemic. I said, I'm going to thrive, man. I said, I love pressure. It's what I do with my clients, managing their money. It's what I do with this show. I think there's just a lot of people, again, I use this quote a lot. There's a show trip called Meet the Press. If you're ever up on a Sunday morning, you want to watch it, always so negative. If that show would have been around when the light bulb was invented, they would have led with the story lamenting the death of the candle. You got to find the good, and you got to find excuses to win in everything that you do. I want to throw this one at you. You're doing a radio broadcast. After a game, your team loses a tough game by 1 point to their biggest rival. You put that microphone in front of the quarterback or the defensive tackle or the defensive back that maybe got burned on a dig route, on a 50-yard post, whatever. What do? You don't start talking. You just put the mic up there and say, tough loss. How about it? You don't say anything, do you?
And frankly, we don't even interview our guys after a loss. We only we only ask them questions after a home win, because I know the culture of the team pretty well. Going on down at Mills, and I know the coaches pretty well. I'll let them do the talking to their players. I don't want to interfere with any preparations that they have to do. Now, I know it'll probably make me look better as a broadcaster to be down there asking questions, especially after a tough loss. But I mean, right now I'm calling the high school level, and they're at this point, there's a lot of kids. Basically, all the kids that are playing are now younger than me, which is kind of crazy to think about. But I've been in the game of high school football for a long time. I was part of a program in Heber Springs. So, but if I were to put a microphone in front of them, I'd say, hey, how about it? What are we going to do to bounce back? How are you guys going to prepare, and what needs to be fixed? Because, football is a week by week game. You can't just, you can't be like most Razorback fans being, oh, we lost one game, the season's over. You gotta, stick to it and, make those midweek adjustments. And that's really all I would ask them is like, how do we bounce back? How do you make those adjustments? And how do you, come back in the next week and win the next ball game? Yeah.
Mark, as fans, Tennessee, I like this. Kurt and Clarksville, Vols are building something special. They are. It's a long-term process. 15 straight losses to Alabama last year for Tennessee. But they got that win last year, and it was like those other 15 years had never happened. It was a knuckleball field goal that went across, and it wiped away a lot of pain.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no doubt. I mean, look, I'm, double nickels, 55 years old, and I was down on the field carrying the goalpost, so it was one of those things that most people down there were, 18 and 20. And, but hey, there's all kinds of fans, and every one of the people I know that my tailgate were on the field and smoking cigars and, you name it. But, it's just, there's just so much, fun that happens with it. But look, you've got to have winning streaks, and you got to be able to win. And there's a lot of pressure in this. And I think the NIL obviously has changed it. I think the portal's changed it. But look, when you start looking at adding, Texas and Oklahoma, into the conference as well, it's going to be pretty amazing. It's going to be viewership. Yeah. I mean, it's, you got a lot of NFL talent coming out of the SEC. And, I'm telling you, we got 100,000 fans up there, and we didn't have that many for many years because, we were losing a lot. We still were putting 80,000 people in there, even with terrible seasons. Yeah. But now that we're winning, it's tough to get a ticket. People are coming. You got to have an administration. I think our administration's done a good job of backing football and backing everything and game day experience and all the things that are going on. They get it because, when we started winning last year, there were more applications that came in for people applying to Tennessee than there have been in years. And there was a guy at my tailgate who is an alum of Tennessee. His son, they live out in Arizona. He had a 4.2 grade point average, had a 30 on his ACT, and he didn't even get in. And I was like, that's just crazy, because typically you'll get into Tennessee with those kind of numbers.
Yeah.
But they've really kind of focused on a lot of the Tennessee kids. So he's in Indiana. He was down at the game. He drove down for the game from Indiana, and he's going to try to transfer. So, when it's exciting like that, and, you look at Alabama, what they built, now you got Georgia, what they built, hopefully with Tennessee, hopefully with Arkansas, hopefully with everyone, you're going to see more and more people that when there's a parade, everybody wants to lead the parade, right? So I think we are building something special in Knoxville. I think we have the right coach, but it just takes time. It takes time.
Yeah,
for sure.
it does. Let's take a quick commercial break. Jordan Davis-Hill is going to join us here in just a second. 24/7 Sports covers the back-to-back national champion Georgia Bulldogs, who have, in my opinion, it isn't arguable. Brock Bowers, Napa, California. He's the best. He's the most dominant player when the game's on the line, and we're going to talk about him right after this quick commercial break in the final segment on Wednesday's edition, the midweek sideline shows.
Red River Ford and Toyota, located in Wynne, Arkansas. If you're in the market for a new or used car, truck, or SUV, call, go online, or drop by and see them. Located 45 minutes from Memphis, go off the 4-City exit on I-40 and go north about 15 minutes on Highway 1. Easy to work with and still believe in customer service. If you live out of town, they will deliver your vehicle to you. RedRiverFordToyota.com. Just see what they can do.
Strengthen your seed zone this spring with quality tillage equipment from House Industries. Located in Cherry Valley, Arkansas, House Industries specializes in manufacturing superior equipment that will minimize your downtime and keep you working in the field. To ensure the highest quality control, all design, fabrication, and testing takes place in a 99,000 square foot manufacturing facility located right here in the heart of the Delta. Locate your nearest House equipment dealer online at houseindustriesinc.com.
House Industries, breaking ground.
Sidelines with Rob Browne. Talk sporty to me.
Browne back here with you, bringing in Jordan Davis-Hill, and we're talking a lot of college football right now. Georgia Bulldogs still ranked number 1, as they should be. Until somebody beats them, they're going for a 3rd straight national championship. And we've got Mark Hamm, Rocky Top Tennessee Tailgate reporter in Knoxville, Jordan. He's got a daughter who's a sophomore at Georgia. So, I mean, it's just, how we're torn apart. And he's got a son at Tennessee. He has the biggest tailgate in Knoxville. And Trip Keeter, his uncle went to school with me at Auburn. He's from Heber Springs, Arkansas. Young 22-year-old. He's done a year so far in broadcasting on radio, doing high school football games. Kind of said, hey, come on, join us on the show. This is the guy, another one. You want to talk about learning, get on the back wheel. When I go in a bike group, there'll be 6 or 8 of us. You're averaging 25, 26 miles an hour hauling. You're about 6 inches, the error-free zone. Get on the back wheel of the fastest riders. This is what you want to do. So, Jordan Hill, thanks for joining us right now. Saw you outside the locker room there Saturday evening down in Auburn. What would you expect, Deep South's oldest rivalry? And I like what Tripp said. He goes, I go to the game. I stay no matter what the score is. We're way ahead, way behind, whatever. I was raised, if you expect your team to play a full 60, you got to stay a full 60. And you certainly did if you were a Georgia or an Auburn fan at Jordan-Hare Stadium last Saturday.
Definitely. I think that proved to be a little bit closer game than most anticipated, but very entertaining game. I thought that Auburn, I think if you're an Auburn fan, you should feel pretty good about the trajectory of the team and with Hugh Freeze and what he's trying to build. There was only so much he could do in that first off season, but Georgia really put itself in a dangerous position on the road, turned the ball over a couple times, missed out on a few opportunities, did not do a very good job of stopping Auburn's run game, especially when it came to their quarterbacks. And credit to Georgia, it was sort of a similar situation against South Carolina where they fell behind and you kind of wanted to see how they responded. Now, the task against South Carolina was a whole lot easier because that was in Sanford Stadium. The level of difficulty was a whole lot higher playing in Jordan-Hare and trying to make that comeback, but they did. Credit to Georgia with how they responded. Really didn't have a whole lot of margin for error. And there were a couple situations in that second half. There were 2 plays that were initially ruled fumbles replay showed that the players were down, and I don't think it was particularly close. But I mean, I really think if either one of those would have flipped the other way, we may be sitting here on Wednesday talking about the fact that Georgia's lost its first regular season game since Florida in October 2020, and how are they going to respond from that?
It's been that long. Holy cow. Wow. I mean, almost 3 years. Question here. Lonnie in Memphis, Brock Bowers as a running back. I guess he wasn't running back in high school at Napa, California high school, wasn't he?
He was, and they've used him on some jet sweeps before. I think he really carried the ball a little bit more last year, just in a few different sort of gadget plays, like I said, sweeps. I think they just see he's got so much value, not only as a pass catcher, but as a blocker. And Kirby was asked about him blocking earlier this week, and he said, the dude doesn't get enough credit. I mean, when he goes out there to block, he's looking to put him in the ground, I think is what Kirby said. So I think they would have to be in a really dire circumstance for him to play running back. And, they've moved Dylan Bell there. He's kind of played back and forth between running back and receiver. I think he just brings so much as a tight end that they don't want to, put him in a situation where they're using him at running back when they've got other options they feel good about.
Yeah. Mark?
No, I mean, the guy's a stud. I mean, obviously, we were watching that game at the tailgate, and there for a while, we're like, wow, I'm not believing this Auburn team. But hey, when you got a guy like Hugh Freeze, you can expect they're gonna be competitive. But look, Georgia, I give it to them. They keep winning. They keep, a year or two ago after they lost so many people, I really thought there would be a down year, and there really hasn't been. They just keep reloading. I don't think they're, maybe quite as talented at the quarterback position as they were last year, but look, Carson Beck's a good player, and obviously he did what he had to do to win. But we get a player like Bowers. I mean, what do you do? I mean, we had a guy named Jason Witten up here for a while that was pretty good and that had a pretty good career, and it was kind of the same thing. He started out as a defensive end, and he moved over to the tight end position, and he was just a mismatch for everyone. I'm not sure if has had as good a career in college as Bowers, but very similar players, very big, 6'4", 250 pounds, tough, have that mentality that, to run over people. And I'll never forget the play when Jason Witten was with the Cowboys and his helmet came off and he ran the length of the field with his helmet off for a touchdown. So, I mean, you just got tough people like that, and those guys do real well, and they're fun to watch because the tight end position is not something that a lot of people utilize. But in the NFL, he'll have a great career for sure.
Yeah, definitely. I'm really interested to see once we get to that point where he ends up. I mean, I think he's got a chance to really be a star. And, a lot of the conversation out of that Auburn game, is he a Heisman candidate? I just don't think that they'll give a tight end the Heisman. I think he would just have to put up absurd numbers, and I'm not sure he would. But, I think it's the same conversation. I'm always hung up on Ndamukong Suh back when he was at Nebraska. I'm still convinced he should have won it. So he'll probably be the people's Heisman. All the fans will say, hey, that was the best player in the country. But if that'll actually translate into him taking home the trophy, I'm just not quite.
I'm still hung up on Charles Woodson beating out Peyton Manning. So, yeah.
Hey, my grandfather my grandfather was a diehard Tennessee fan. I heard about that all the time. I heard about, I think it was Johnny Majors and Paul Hornung going way back. So I know all about some of those slides.
Jump in here with this trip, talking with Jordan Davis Hill, 24/7 Sports, covers Georgia for us. For that, hey, you got to learn this too. Good lesson Jordan can teach you. About 5.5 years, he had the Auburn beat, so he's all over. He's a Georgia native, but I think the more you can experience, the better it is. And Jordan, wouldn't you say to a young aspiring radio announcer, learn how to write, learn how to do everything?
Oh, definitely. You got to learn how to do anything that gets thrown at you. I mean, I've done video. I've done never really done much broadcasting, but if it got thrown my way, I'd find a way to make it happen. But yeah, it's definitely in sports journalism and sports broadcasting at this point. I mean, you kind of have to be a jack of all trades and not only be willing to try stuff, but, learn and figure it out on the fly. It makes things interesting. There's always something new you can learn. Yeah. Jump in here, Trip.
Yeah. That's a lot of good advice, honestly. And, I kind of need it because guess how much training I have for sports journalism or broadcasting. As much as Arkansas has SEC championships, that's how much. None. So I I need all the advice I could get because I'm I keep having to remind myself that I'm still in the infancy of my career, essentially, because I hold myself to way too high standards, and I need to kind of like bring myself back down to earth. Like, hey, I'm still just starting. I'm still 1 year into this. I'm just starting. I do absolutely need to learn to write articles. I need to, especially, this is the big thing I struggle with for broadcast. I do not keep any stats at all. It's all just muscle memory or stuff that I just keep in my head during stuff, and I leave it to Darius, my game analyst, who has an amazing football IQ, and I call him both the brains and the bronze of our broadcast, because he saves me a lot in terms of stats. So I have a lot to learn, and I'm really excited to learn, because this is a dream job. To me, it doesn't feel like I'm working every Friday night when I go to games. I tell myself I'm just getting paid to go have fun at football games and basketball and all that sort of stuff. So it's a blessing. It really is. It's a God-given blessing, and I have nothing but high praise for everybody who's done this for years and years. And I've got a lot to learn, a lot to experience, and I can't say I'm not excited for it, because if I did, I'd be lying.
Definitely, it's a whole lot of fun, and you figure it out along the way. Sometimes, there are things, and it's funny too. Once you get reps at whatever you're doing in this industry, you can look back 3 or 4 years before it's something you did that I was super proud of, and you kind of look at it later, and you're like, "Ooh, I kind of had a ways to go with that. That wasn't quite as good as I thought it was."
Hey, Sunday morning, we're over at the Hotel and Conference Center, Jordan, across from the library in Auburn. And it's just a beehive of activity. It's people checking out, from the weekend. But comes Bruce Pearl from breakfast with recruits, and there's Clemente and all these guys, from Auburn Undercover. I mean, it's just, you don't get a day. Hey, I'll tell you something, and you know this, Mark. I don't, you don't. Trip, you don't. So you better love what you do and do what you love. But Jordan, question from Jason in West Point, Georgia. Dogs are going to break out Saturday versus Kentucky. Let's talk about that matchup. Kentucky, as Sonny Wilson would say at Alex's Tavern so many years, they're undefeated, 5-0. But are they a team that's played a tough schedule? Not really. Georgia went on the road. That was the best thing to happen to them, to me, before they play a team like Kentucky. But your thoughts matter most.
Yeah, I think you make a good point. I mean, I'm trying to remember Kentucky's non-con. I mean, it was like Akron and Ball State, Eastern Kentucky, and then they played Florida, who you could tell not quite as good as maybe some thought this year, and then Vanderbilt. So, I mean, I still think this Kentucky team's unproven. And something that's similar when you look at Georgia, something I find interesting with Georgia and Kentucky, I think they're kind of built in the same ideals in the way that Mark Stoops wants to put a team together compared to Kirby Smart. And I want to give a shout out to one of my old former coworkers, Jake Rowe, over there at Dogs HQ with On 3. And he talked about there's kind of tiers with how certain teams are built, and it's Georgia at that top tier with the physicality and the way they want to play. Then it's Michigan right below them. I think if Georgia and Michigan wound up playing in the playoff, that would kind of play into Georgia's hands just because of how those teams are built. And then that tier below them is Kentucky. And I don't think this is a Kentucky team that's quite good enough to beat Georgia. Maybe if this game was also on the road, maybe you would see it a little bit closer. They ran all over Florida, but from what I've seen, and I need to go back and watch the full game, I've just seen some highlights. I kind of think that said more about Florida than it did Kentucky. I don't think that Florida team wanted anything to do with tackling Ray Davis, being able to stop the run. They've got a chance to prove themselves. Like you said, Kentucky's still undefeated. Got a chance to make some noise, show that they are a contender in that SEC East the last year that it's going to be there. But I'm just not quite sold that Kentucky offense is quite good enough. I've been really disappointed just with what I've seen in Devin Leary. I thought he had a chance to kind of be a sneaky all-SEC caliber of quarterback, and I don't think he's played up to that standard so far. So to me, it's going to come down to Georgia being able to stop the run. Struggle with it a bit against Auburn, although that was more on quarterback runs. Did a decent job slowing down Jarquez Hunter and company. But I've got this one. I think 28-17 is the score I was going with. Georgia by 11. I think Kentucky will have its moments in this game, but Sanford Stadium's going to be rocking, and I'm not quite sure that Kentucky's got enough talent.
Remember, Mark and Tripp, a couple of years ago, I was at that game October 16th in Athens. We saw one of the rock stars in broadcasting, Lauren Smith. We went over there to watch him and hang out with him, Jordan, before the pregame, which starts like a day before on the radio. I mean, it's like 3.5 or 4 hours long. It's awesome. And every commercial break, 50, 60 people will be lining up to get Lauren's autograph or get him to sign their book or something like that. But yeah, and Kentucky was, I think, undefeated at that game. A lot of Kentucky fans down there. And Georgia, basically, I think they held Chris Rodriguez to 23 yards rushing, running back out of Eagles Landing Christian Academy in McDonough, Georgia, I believe. And it just didn't work out well. Mark, what do you think is going to happen between the hedges? I know you've got ears and boots on the ground with Molly, but what's your gut feeling?
Yeah, I think Kentucky, they seem to come out of the gate like last year pretty strong, and then they kind of tail off toward the end of the year, and they've got a buzzsaw. I mean, if you look at their schedule of SEC teams in the next, 3 or 4 weeks, and when you go on the road to Georgia, I agree. It's going to be difficult for them. I think that running back they've got is pretty good. I do an SEC fantasy football league, and he's one of my running backs. He had 38 points at halftime. So, with 52 on fantasy for me. Well, so I loved it. But, yeah, I just think Georgia's defense is too talented. And you go on the road down there, it's a pretty hostile environment. I mean, look, I've only been to the game, the Sanford Stadium a few times, last year being one of them. And, we came in with a pretty potent offense, and we couldn't do anything. Granted, a lot of those players moved on to the NFL, but Georgia reloads, and it's a difficult place to play. So I agree. I think they're going to be pretty fired up. And after that close game they had on Saturday, I think they're ready to do some domination and really stop the run.
Yeah. Jordan, looking at Kentucky again, and I've got that schedule here in front of me. I mean, I think the strength of schedule is 128th out of 133 Division I schools. And they've played Ball State, Eastern Kentucky, Akron, Vanderbilt, and they beat a Florida team 33-14. But Georgia,
they got a bus all coming up.
yeah. Look, my gut feeling, Kentucky is walking the green mile. Look for them to put in an order of a gallon of ice cream, a 20-piece bucket. It looks like they're walking the green mile to the electric chair. I see 42-10 Georgia.
The one thing that has kind of given me pause is that every single week I've been like, this is going to be the week that Georgia figures it out. And, I know you can only put so much stock into this. Georgia has yet to cover the spread this year. And I can't remember. I think it might be right around 2 touchdowns for this game, but I can see Kentucky making a few plays, but I just, if Devin Leary had played better coming in this game, I could say this may be a 4-quarter shootout, but haven't seen it. I will say that I really like Kentucky's defense. I think they've done a very good job this year, and that they're in good shape. They got several guys that have really stood out, have played really well. So I could see them giving Georgia some issues, but just haven't seen enough to make me say on the road in Sanford Stadium on a Saturday night, Kentucky can come in there and pull off the upset.
Yeah. Tripp, you look at these games from 35,000 feet, that's typically when you're flying from, say, Memphis to Los Angeles. What do you see happening in this matchup? Because it matters who you play, and especially when you go on the road in a tough environment. If you hadn't been truly tested, you can get, you can fall apart quickly.
Absolutely. And I think Kentucky is about to have a rude awakening once they walk into Athens, because if you know anything about the Georgia fan base, is that no matter what time the game kicks off, they're loud and they're going at it. I mean, I can recall the Razorback game when Georgia hosted Arkansas back in 2021. It was a 12 a.m. kickoff. They had college game day on campus, and those fans filled the stadium. It wasn't even noon yet, and they were going crazy. And Georgia ended up shutting out the Razorbacks. So I mean, it's probably the most. It's going to be the toughest game for Kentucky for sure, because Georgia, no matter who they're playing, they always bring it. They're probably one of the best teams in college football right now because of it. On both sides of the ball as well, they're incredibly explosive. Don't let the score for the Auburn game last Saturday fool you, because they're great. They deserved those last two national championships that they won because they earned it. They're one of the hardest working teams in college football, and it's going to be probably a dog domination on Saturday.
Yeah, we're really helping out. Now, here's the question. Larry in Sandersville, Georgia, Waco, Washington County High School, Mark. That's in Sanders. That's where Takeo Spikes, Robert Edwards, Terrence Edwards. Terrence Edwards, still to this day, the only 1,000-yard receiver in Georgia history. Now, if Brock Bowers, Jordan, were to get 1,000 yards receiving, he's a tight end. Would he then supplant Terrence Edwards out of Sandersville as the second 1,000-yard receiver in Georgia? Do they only count that as wide receivers? That's a stupid question, but I thought I'd ask.
I think it counts. I mean, I think it's all about pass catchers, whoever catches 1,000 yards.
Okay. What worries you? I like this, Bo. He's saying, what worries you most when you look at Kentucky in this game?
I think it's something I sort of hit on was Ray Davis. I mean, I think he's a really talented back. I think if they're able to get it going, that they've got a chance. But, I think it just depends on how exactly Kentucky tries to attack on the ground. The big thing about that Auburn game was Auburn did such a good job of misdirection and option plays and keeping those linebackers guessing. Is Kentucky able to replicate that? I'm not so sure, because Devin Leary's not a guy that's a dual threat, a guy that's going to run on you, and you have to account for him. So I think it's the run game, but again, it looks very, very different compared to the one Georgia saw last week against Auburn. But I think if Kentucky's going to have a chance, Ray Davis is going to have a big day.
Well, and bottom line, if you can't run the ball in the SEC, if you can't stop the run, you don't play great special teams, you're going to be in struggle a lot. And then, you got people like Edgar Winter, love that one, in Crossville, Tennessee. By the way, that's where they're building the largest Buc-ee's anywhere. It's supposed to be 75,000 square feet. The one, did you go to the one, by the way, Jordan, when you were in Auburn last weekend?
I didn't have a chance. I was really bummed out, but I will say I know Crossville well. That's where my grandmother was from. So I'm sure that there's some folks up there that are really excited about that coming to town.
Yeah, and that one will be nuts up there. But Vols Dogs is going to be a big game. So I mean, A&M and Tennessee before that. Look, it's too early to be looking ahead. I mean, that's the thing about it. But I think that this Georgia team going on the road, one thing, you hate it and you love it. You've got all these home games, but the players really playing the 11 o'clock game on the road. The reason it favors the visiting team is they can get home early, and everybody gets the game over with early. They love it, but the fans don't really like it. But Jordan, I like this one, Artemis Pyle in Bainbridge, Georgia. Georgia needs to find more running backs. That's why that question came in earlier about Brock Bowers playing running back. But you look at the Georgia running back room, it's usually a couple of first and second rounders in there. They had 13 on the running back room roster just a couple of years ago. How do you rank the current stable of running backs Georgia has?
Well, I mean, the biggest thing has just been getting those guys healthy. I think they would be in decent shape. It wouldn't be the best running back room in the country or the SEC by any means, but they've just been so banged up. I mean, and even Saturday, Kendall Milton played. I don't think he took a carry, though. I think he was mainly in pass protection, trying to get him back from an MCL injury. That they have had to get really creative, like I mentioned earlier, putting Dylan Bell, a receiver, back there some. So it's something that I want to follow through this next month. Can they keep those guys healthy? They cannot afford to have Dejon Edwards, the lead back, get hurt. If he were to get banged up, even if he's playing and trying to gut through it and push through it, That's a significant issue for Georgia. So depth is a real question at running back, and they cannot afford to get anyone else banged up.
Mark, you need to make sure Jordan comes and sees you at the tailgate before Jordan, you got to try his brisket. It's ridiculous. Roman Harper came up there with us last year before the Alabama game for about an hour. we just kept eating and eating. How much did we eat? 20 pounds worth, Mark? Just the five of us?
It was just a whole cow we brought, I think. It was just a side of beef.
Yeah, Jordan's got a lot of Tennessee fan blood in his family tree. He's the one who gave me the great deal. If you're from North Georgia fan, that Tennessee game's the biggest. West Georgia, Southwest Georgia, the Auburn game is. South Georgia near the Florida line, the Georgia game is. Northeast, it's Clemson or South Carolina. Georgia, the state of many rivals. I mean, it's big. But look, hey, Tripp, thank you so much for joining us. Mark, Rocky Top Tennessee Tailgate Report. Love you being on here with us. Jordan Hill, again, let them know how they can follow you and keep up with you and all the great work. Most often we see the face of Christ in the least among us. We live in the greatest country in the history of the world. We have the best guests, sponsors, and viewers anywhere. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. We're growing this thing. It's a populist movement. Free speech is alive and well. And again, Jordan, thanks for being on here with us.
Definitely. Go check us out over at dogs247.com, on Twitter at dogs247. Got a deal right now for anyone listening, 2 months for $1. So go sign up for it. VIP content. Be ready for the stretch run of the football season. It's going to be an interesting one, no doubt.
Oh, no question. I mean, again, it's early. It's still 90 degrees right now. And by the way, I don't know Governor Kay Ivey, and I don't know Brian Kemp. But we know that Commissioner Sankey has probably received more than a phone call. The Auburn-Georgia rivalry. Let's go back to mid-November and get it to where Auburn plays Georgia at home one year, Bama on the road like it used to be. 90 degrees. That's nuts. I don't mind heat, but that rivalry, it should be 48 degrees, 55 degrees, beautiful sunny day. But anyway, hey, great show today, everybody. I got another one lined up for you tomorrow. Go out and do something great. Words and deeds follow through, man. We're out of here. See you tomorrow.